Senator Elizabeth Warren, who is running for the Democratic presidential nomination, continues to make news in her effort to attain that nomination. Previously, Senator Warren had indicated that she had no intention of, quote, unilateral disarmament, end quote, which meant that her ban on big money fundraisers and corporate funding was only meant for the primary process, not the general election. So in an recent interview with CBS News on Tuesday, Senator Warren shifted her position.
You have had success to this point without holding big dollar fundraisers. As you're kind of emerging as a front runner here, do you wonder if perhaps you would pivot to having big dollar fundraisers in a general election or be forced to do that? Could you continue doing what you're doing?
No, I will not be forced to make changes in how I raise money. Look, for me, this is pretty straightforward. Either you think democracy works and electing a president is all about going behind closed doors with bazillionaires and corporate executives and lobbyists and scooping up as much money as possible. Or you think it's about a grassroots, let's build this from the ground up. And the problem is, so long as it's the wealthy and well-connected who finance the presidential elections, then we're going to continue to have a government that works really great for the wealthy and the well-connected and just not work for much of anyone else. My campaign is all about changing that. It's all about making this country, making this government, making this democracy work, not just for those at the top, but for everyone. And here's the thing, it's working.
And can you guarantee your supporters that under no circumstances, no matter how much money Donald Trump is raising, you will not take big dollar?
Yeah, I'm not going to go do the big dollar fundraisers. I'm just not going to do it.
Had to start with the slow clap. Man, that was great news. That was great news because, again, had to lead off with the unilateral disarmament that we have talked about before, in which she said that I guess that process of not taking big money, not taking corporate cash, not using super PACs, that was only going to be a ban on the primary process, not the general election process. And we, again, when we talked about this, we said, that's whack. That sounds Hillary Clinton-like. No, not Hillary Clinton-like. That sounds exactly like Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton was, of course, against corruption in politics, money in politics. She was against that. She said she was. But she was going to use that process to get elected and then do something about it. It was the same thing that Elizabeth Warren was saying.
And she went into it right there with the answer she gave. She basically went into the very thing that we talk about in saying that, hey, having big donors like that will corrupt the process. So? She said it herself. Now, first of all, I think what she tried to do in that situation was what she always does, is she takes a direct question and then kind of doesn't really answer it directly. And then she kind of goes into a kind of a political speech, general political speech. And this time she did it about corruption. This is what forced the interviewer to retort with the same question. Like, okay.
But give credit where credit is due, man. Look. Stop criticizing. So give credit where. Look, her campaign even confirmed what she has said during this interview. Right? You want me to read a little bit more details?
Go ahead.
Can I go ahead?
Go ahead.
All right. So they confirmed this on Wednesday. Her campaign and her campaign aides confirmed her words on Wednesday. Okay. So her aides said that while she wouldn't attend big money fundraisers for her campaign, she would attend big money fundraisers for the Democratic National Committee. Hold on. What? She wouldn't. Hold on. Maybe I read that wrong before.
I think you read that wrong, man.
Because I kind of. So she.
You need to back up.
Yeah, I know.
You need to back up, reverse, and read that over, son.
So Warren's aides stated that she would not attend these big money, big dollar, mega donor type fundraisers for her presidential campaign. She would not do that. So that's good news. Good news.
Okay, all right. That's the first part.
Oh man, that's all right. But they did note that she would I guess, do the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, a solid, and she would show up at these very high-priced gatherings and these mega donor functions that, allow the DNC to take in a lot of money.
So
She said, well, her spokeswoman, her name is Kristen Orthman. She said that Senator Warren was committed to helping Democrats, quote, up and down the ballot. So if you're committed to helping Democrats up and down the ballot, then you must attend these high-priced, big-ticket fundraisers. You got to help the team. You got to help the team.
So she's not going to attend these fundraisers for herself.
No.
In her campaign.
No.
But as far as like for the party and the DNC as a whole,
Right.
she's okay with it. So again, we have to kind of
It's a little spin.
it's a little spin,
It's a little
but
spin
we
on
kind
that.
of have to translate what this means, because I'm still we gotta translate this in real time, because I'm confused right now, because she just went on a spiel about how money in politics corrupts the process. Big
Essentially,
donors.
that's what she said.
Essentially, that's what she says. Big donors corrupting the process, and that's what we're trying to change.
How the government only works
How the
for
government
certain
only works for
people.
certain people, and essentially, corporations kind of funneling money, CEOs funneling money, big donors funneling money to these campaigns compromises that process.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, that's her position. She just stated that. That position would be true regardless of what particular process we're talking about, whether it's the process that her campaign issues and her campaign accepts, and her campaign states, right? If she states that, hey, we're gonna keep it straight and narrow. We're gonna cross all of our T's and dot all of our I's and not take any corporate money, and we're gonna be A-okay.
Yeah.
But
Grassroots approach.
yeah, that's a grassroots approach, and we're trying to create that image. And so we're trying to send a message here. So how does that not translate into into the macro? How does that not translate or not apply to the macro?
Because see, she's not doing it for herself. She's not being selfish here.
But so-
she's trying to do that for other Democrats that are trying to get elected.
But even if she's doing that for those Democrats, wouldn't she be kind of I guess being a counterintuitive agent in the process she says is bad, in the process she says that corrupts our politics? Wouldn't she then become a counterintuitive agent?
Well,
Isn't
look
that-
at this. There's nothing wrong with showing up for fellow Democrats. There's nothing wrong with lending your voice to try to get other Democrats elected. Elected to the Senate, elected to the House. Many Democrats do that. Democrats that we support, AOC, anybody they show up. They'll show up at these rallies. They'll attend these rallies. They'll direct their supporters to the candidate that they're endorsing to make sure that they have enough money. Make sure you go and donate to this candidate. We believe in them. They're gonna make some. They're gonna help make some changes in Congress. We need somebody like that. This and that. So there's nothing wrong with advocating for other Democrats and showing up for other Democrats, and even trying to get more money into the pockets of these other Democrats in their pursuit to attain office, attain a victory in the election. But this right here that Elizabeth Warren is talking about seems a little familiar. This seems just a tad bit familiar.
Oh, you mean like kind of raising money across the board in multiple states for all campaigns
With one check.
with one check and funneling that money?
We saw this in
What does that
2016.
sound like? What does that sound like?
It was
What was that called?
Hillary
Hillary.
Victory
Okay.
Fund. The Hillary Victory Fund, which, back in the day, we reported on this, and we did admit that President Obama had a fund just like this, but it was a little bit different because
It started.
it started after he actually attained the Democratic presidential nomination.
Hillary started
Hillary's.
in 2015.
Exactly. So they were raising all this money while she didn't even have one delegate yet.
Oh, she had delegates.
I mean, she had super delegates.
She didn't have. She
didn't win any delegates at this point.
I feel delegates.
But still, we talked about how obscene and how inappropriate it was because with one single check, you could send over $300,000 to the Democratic National Committee, but it wasn't really. I mean, look. Officially, of course, it was to the Democratic National Committee, and it was because of the different state Democratic, offices across the state. So it stood for all those different states. You were not writing a check just to the nationwide Democratic National Committee. You were writing a check to all these other state Democratic parties. That's why you could write such a big check. But what we found was that after all of these checks had been sent, that less than, I think, 1% of the money actually ended up in the hands of these state Democratic parties. And mostly all of the money, 99% or more, went to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign.
What? You sure that's correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's correct. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
By Hillary Clinton's campaign,
Yeah.
you mean like her campaign and helping those other candidates?
No,
that was the campaign?
It was her campaign to try to beat Bernie Sanders and then ultimately beat Donald Trump in the general election. So
Also, what's the lesson here? Like, that she's teaching us, right? I need to jot this down because this is an important lesson that is being taught by Elizabeth Warren, is that how we define corruption and when we define corruption and the conditions in which we, I guess, define corruption is kind of based on when it happens, right? It's based on when it happens. So if the process is corrupt, right? In one instance, in this case, it will be the primaries.
yes,
In this case,
in the primaries.
not only in the primaries, it's corrupt if she does it for herself,
Yes,
right?
if she's selfish.
Okay, so what she's telling us is now that that process is not corrupt if it applies in a different situation.
Yep. Rufus Gifford, who he's a former finance director for President Barack Obama. Now, he is not in support of Elizabeth Warren unilaterally disarming herself. But he did say this about her, I guess, this shift and then the later explanation of how she's not going to raise money for herself. She's going to raise money for the DNC and other Democratic candidates. So this is what he said. He said, once you are the Democratic nominee, you are the party. You own the party. Your political operation takes over the DNC. You cannot divorce in any way fundraising for the presidential campaign and the Democratic Party. We saw exactly that take place in 2016 when Hillary Clinton became, even before, but officially when she became the Democratic presidential nominee. It was her organization. She ran the show. And that's how it always is, because what is the DNC there for in a presidential campaign? They want their candidate to win. So whatever this candidate and what their team says goes for the DNC. So it's going to go for Elizabeth Warren. We have no idea at this point if it's going to be the same thing as in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, in which 99% of the funds ultimately went to her. We have no idea that it's ultimately, all the funds are ultimately going to go to Elizabeth Warren. But I will say it's definitely a bad look, and I wouldn't be surprised if that actually ended up happening. So if Elizabeth Warren is is interested in not being associated with the appearance of corruption and wants to really just involve herself with a grassroots approach.
She said grassroots. She used the term.
This ain't it.